Hi, this is William from Great Affordable Watches, and in this video I'm gonna review the Seiko SARB065. The SARB065 is perhaps one of the most well-known dress watches from Seiko under $1,000. The SARB065, SARB033 and SARB017 are all three of Seiko's Japanese-made or Japanese domestic market models that are very famous for offering great value for your money. And these days the SARB065 has been discontinued and is actually replaced by a new model from the Presage line. So this is the original SARB065, or the original Cocktail Time as it's called, and a lot of people still want the original because of higher end movement, etc., as we're gonna go into later in this video. Some basic history about the Cocktail Time is that this is a collaboration between Seiko and a top bartender in Japan. So he collaborated and made, I believe, 3 models, and this is the result of this collaboration. The watch, of course, has the very famous textured sunburst dial, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. But as always with my reviews, let's go through the specifications first. The case is 39.9 millimeters in diameter. The case thickness is around 13.2 millimeters to the domed hardlex mineral crystal. The lug width is 20 millimeters and the lug-to-lug length is around 47.3 millimeters. This watch is water resistant down to 5 atm or 50 meters, and it got the Seiko 6R15 movement. And of course, one of the main differences between the original Cocktail Time, or the SARB065, and the new Presage Cocktail Time is that the 6R15 movement in this watch is considered more high-end than the 4R36 that can be found in the new Cocktail Time. So that's a part of the reason why some collectors want the original Cocktail Time. The 6R15 movement, and the same can be said about the 4R36, are all based on the 7S26 foundation, but the biggest difference between the 7S26 and the 6R15 is that it got added hacking and hand winding, as we can see. And it also got an upgraded mainspring made with the Seiko Spron 510 material, and thanks to the new mainspring, the power reserve has been increased to 50 hours. So, and we can also see that Seiko specs the accuracy of this watch a bit better than the 7S26 and the 4R36. I have owned a couple of watches with the 6R15 and they have all performed excellent, and while it's not the prettiest to look at, I think the 6R15 is a definite upgrade to the 7S26. At least thanks to the upgraded power reserve and the added hacking and hand winding. Okay, let's move on to the design of this watch. And the dial on this watch is absolutely gorgeous. It's perhaps one of the most beautiful and well-known dials, together with the snowflake dial that Seiko makes. And this sunburst texture effect is yeah, it's just incredible looking, and the pictures don't really do this dial justice, and I must say I've owned a lot of Seikos and this is definitely the most beautiful one. It's silver or white, but the sunburst effect gives it a slight blue tint, and together with the heat treated blue second hand, I think this watch is just excellent. And also the markers and the hands are very nicely finished, and yeah, the hands especially are really nicely polished. And you definitely notice that the dial on this watch is a bit higher end than most Seikos in this price range. Another interesting fact is that the case, while being a bit thick, as we're gonna talk about later, is actually from the SARS lineup, the SARS 015, 017, 18, etc. And from my understanding and looking at the prices of the SARS lineup, it's a bit higher end than the SARB. So the case comes directly from the SARS lineup. I can leave a picture here so you can see these similarities. Of course, the crown is signed with the famous S. We can find this type of crown or signed crown on most higher end Seikos. But I must say I really like the crown. It's very easy to grip, and yeah, it's very satisfying to wind this watch. All in all, I really like this watch. I think the dial is absolutely gorgeous, and there are a couple of downsides to this watch. The first one is that it got a hardlex mineral crystal instead of a sapphire, and this is a bit of a negative downside for me, but I must say that this watch, or this glass or the crystal, has held up very nicely. I can't see a single scratch on the crystal, so that's really nice to see. The second one is that the case diameter is 40 millimeters. As we saw, it's a bit under 40, and I'm glad that's the case, because 40 millimeters is on the upper side of what a dress watch should be. But as we're gonna see on my wrist, I still think it's really nice, and it doesn't feel that big. It actually feels a bit smaller than 40 millimeters, which is great in my opinion. And the last downside of this watch is of course the thickness. It's a pretty thick watch at around 13 millimeters to the case here. It got a slight dome, or a pretty big dome actually. It's a bit thinner than what the spec says, but it's still a pretty thick dress watch. That's a bit of a downside in my opinion, but all in all, I believe this watch is just gorgeous, and I can overlook some of its downsides. A lot of people will probably ask, is this watch better than the SARB033? Or should I get the SARB033 or the SARB065? And to shortly answer this question, the SARB065 and the SARB033 are two very different watches. And while both watches are somewhat dress watches, I would say that this watch is more of a dress watch than the SARB033. And the dial on this watch is a lot more special than the black or white dial on the SARB033. But because this is such a beautiful dress watch, this is perhaps not the perfect everyday watch, and also thanks to the 50 meter of water resistance. The SARB033 on the other hand is a bit more understated, a bit smaller as well at 38 millimeters, and it got 100 meter of water resistance, which is better for an everyday watch. So to sum it up, if you're looking for a really good looking dress watch and you will use it mostly as a dress watch but also somewhat casually, I think this watch is a good option. But if you plan on getting a everyday watch that looks a bit dressy but can be worn every day in most environments, I think the SARB033 is the better choice. But both watches are great and you can't go wrong with any of them. But now let's do a wrist shot. Okay, here it is. And my wrist is about 7 inches for reference, and I must say it sits really nicely on my wrist. It doesn't sit that big or tall. It's pretty comfortable. The lugs hug my wrist pretty nicely, and yeah, I must say I'm a big fan of smaller watches. I have a couple of King Seikos which are around 36 millimeters. While I do prefer smaller sizes, I still think this watch sits comfortably. And that dial is absolutely gorgeous. And the overall quality is really high on this watch. I believe this is definitely one of Seiko's best value for money watches, or um, best quality for money watches under or around $500 you can get. These watches are becoming a bit more expensive now when they are discontinued, but you can still pick them up for around $500, and they are absolutely worth it. And I have seen the new Presage, and I believe this watch is of higher quality than the new Presage Cocktail. But that watch is a bit thinner, so I still think you can't go wrong with any of the two watches. But if you want the original Cocktail Time, of course, this is the only choice. Okay, that's all for today's video, and let me know what you think of this watch down in the comment section. Do you think the original Cocktail Time, this one, is better than the new Cocktail Time? Just let me know down in the comment sections. And if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.